General Mills presents Bride and Groom.
The honor of your presence is requested at the wedding of Miss Ellen Louise Fishel and Mr. Edward Carter.
Hello and welcome to Bride and Groom. Today we're going to meet two young people who knew personal tragedy and persecution under the Russians and the Germans. Both escaped miraculously to this country to find freedom. They found that freedom and they found each other. And today they'll be married by Rabbi Israel Miller of the Kingsbridge Heights Jewish Center. And now I'd like you to meet our lovely bride. She's Miss Ellen Louise Fishel. Her bridegroom is Mr. Edward Carter. And you both have remarkable backgrounds, so tell us about you. You first, Ellen, please.
Well, I'm 22 years old, and I was born in Berlin, Germany. I came to America in 1935. I graduated from the School of Industrial Arts and Indiana University.
And you, Ed?
I'm 31. I was born in Boyton, Germany, Silesia. I came to this country in 1948. I study electricity at the industrial school in Bielsko, Silesia. I am now employed by the B&B Electric Company in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I see. Ellen, suppose you tell us what brought you to America, if you will, please.
Well, my father owned a jewelry store in Germany, and in 1933 the Nazi regime started, and Mother feared that war would eventually break out. And to confirm these fears, many terrible incidents happened. So in 1935 we came to America. I have my passport here to show you that all we were allowed to bring with us was 20 marks and just our clothing.
Good heavens, a whole family live on 20 marks, about $4
That's $4 in American
in a
dollars.
strange country.
Yes.
This is a picture of your father?
That's right.
Well, then this picture must be of you when you came to this country. And here's a little picture, the inscription, 20 marks,
Right.
Tell me, well, how did you get by in the United States at first?
Well, Dad did get a job right away, and we did have friends and relatives here in America, and America was very good to us.
You were lucky. I understand you weren't quite as lucky as that, Ed.
No, I wasn't. I was imprisoned by the German and sent to the Buchenwald concentration camp.
Oh, yes.
And my whole family, my parents, was killed by the Nazi. But I managed to escape by cutting the high-tension wires.
Did you manage to escape completely, Ed?
No, I reached the border and the Russian captured me and sent me to the slave labor camp in Vladivostok in Russia. And after a while I was released and I joined the Polish army to fight the German. And in 1948 I managed to go to Belgium, and from over there I came to the United States.
Michael and Augusta married in 1897. They welcomed their first child, Leonard Shmilovitsi, in Dorohoi, Romania, on August the 4th, 1898. After Leo's birth, other children quickly followed. Anna in 1899 and Matilda in 1900. A failed attempt to move to the United States in 1902 coincided with the birth of their daughter Lotta in the UK. Returning to Romania, daughter Regina was born in 1905. In 1906, the Shmilovitzis moved to Mannheim, Germany, seeking a safer place with less anti-Semitism and better economic prospects. It was in Mannheim that the last three children were born: Hilda in 1907, Rosal in 1909, and son Samuel in 1911. Through the years, the Shmilovitsi family grew and posed for portraits. During World War I, Leo, the oldest son, served in the army and was stationed in Romania. He sent packages of food regularly to his family. After the war, Leo remained in Bucharesti, became a successful businessman, married Ida, and one by one his siblings married as well. Anna married Alon, Matilda married Joseph, Regina married Leopold, Hilda married Benny, Rosal married Ludwig. After emigrating to the United States, Lotta married Max and Samuel married Ava. Several of the Chmielewicz siblings moved out of Germany throughout the 1920s. Anna to Argentina, Regina to France, Lotta, Matilda, and Samuel to the US. Augusta and Michael Chmielewicz moved to Metz, Moselle in 1930 to be close to their daughter Regina and her family. Michael and Augusta's children welcomed grandchildren between 1921 and 1948. Ruth, Julio, Ethel, Marcel, Nora, Leon, Rodolfo, Moshe, Norberto, Siegbert, Fred, Ellen, Marlene Genet, Gideon, Sandra, Lenore, Marion, Linda, and Leslie. After Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, the environment became very toxic for Jews. In 1934, Hilda, her husband Benny, and son Siegbert were forced to flee Mannheim to the British Mandate of Palestine. After Hilda left, only Rosal, Ludwig, and Ellen remained in Mannheim. On March 18th, 1935, tragedy struck. 54-year-old Augusta Chmielewicz succumbed to cancer. Her devoted husband Michael and their children left in Europe, Regina, Leo and Rosal, buried their magnificent mother in the Jewish cemetery in Metz. Meanwhile, in Mannheim, terrible events were happening. Rosal was told to geh raus from their local grocery store. It was time to leave. The officials received an American immigration visa and left Mannheim on September 19, 1935. Ellen never set foot on German soil again.
Swing low, sweet chariot, come in to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, come in to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, come in to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, come in to carry me home.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
Here I go again. I hear those trumpets blow again. all aglow again, taking a chance on love. Here I slide again, about to take that ride again, starry-eyed again, taking a chance on love. Thought that cards were a frame-up, I never would try, but now I'm taking the game up, and the ace of hearts is high. Things are mending now, I see a rainbow blending now. We'll have a happy ending now, taking a chance on love. I thought that cards were a frame-up, I never would try, but now I'm taking the game up, and the ace of hearts is high. Things are mending now, I see a rainbow blending now. We'll have a happy ending now, taking a chance on love.
In 1940, the Chmielewicz siblings hosted their widowed father, Michael, to the United States. He was awarded an immigration visa. Michael went to live with his youngest daughter Rosel, Ludwig, and granddaughter Ellen. On June 14, 1940, 2 months after Opar Michael left France, Paris fell to Nazi Germany, and the French government evacuated Paris as German soldiers marched on the Champs-Élysées. Shortly thereafter, all Jews were forced to wear the Yellow Star of David and were barred from public places and certain professions. Opar Michael attended synagogue daily and prayed for his family still in Europe. He was worried about his son Leo, his daughter-in-law Ida, and granddaughter Nora in Bucharesti, as well as his sister Berta, her husband Shrul, daughter Regina, her husband Leopold, and 3 grandchildren in Tamlay. He had lived with them in Metz and missed them. In the meantime, he focused on his grandchildren living in the United States. Six months after Michael's arrival, he sat Shiva in mourning of his daughter Matilda, who died at the age of 40. Matilda is buried in Selden, Long Island.
After World War I, Leonard Smilovici remained in Bucharest and met the young and beautiful Ida Silberstein at a Jewish dance. They fell in love and were married. Leo remained in Bucharest with his wife Ida, and in 1925 their only daughter, Nora, was born. Leo established himself as a successful businessman. He provided well for his family, and he would often send pictures of their handsome family to his parents and siblings, who were living in Mannheim, Metz, Tel Aviv, Valparaiso, and New York City. The city of Bucharest was adorned with beautiful and elaborate architecture and became known as a cultural center, earning the nickname of Paris of the East. By the late 1920s, the population of Bucharest increased by over 30,000 residents per year. The development of Bucharest continued throughout the 1930s, and later that period was known as one of the most prosperous times in Romanian history. Leo's business flourished in Bucharest throughout the 1930s, and life for the Smilovicis was wonderful. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, a decade after his failed Munich beer hall putsch. European Jews were keeping their eye on what was happening in Germany. Once in power, Hitler and his henchmen did not waste any time to create his dream of a Europe cleansed of Jews. Jewish hatred was nothing new. It had been going on for centuries throughout Europe. In 1934, Leo's brother-in-law, Benny Dreimann, was arrested in Mannheim, Germany, and given 48 hours to leave. Benny, Hilda, and their 5-year-old son, Sigbert, boarded a refugee ship headed for Mandatory Palestine. They settled on Rehov Gordon in Tel Aviv and lived in one room. Leo and his sister Hilda corresponded regularly between the years 1935 to 1941. In September 1935, Germany passed the racial and anti-Semitic Nuremberg laws. In a December 1937 letter to his sister Hilda in Tel Aviv, Leo writes that a general economic crisis has made itself felt into every industry and every line of business from which everything has to suffer. In another letter, Leo asks what the price is of a small house or land in Mandatory Palestine that he would love to purchase. By 1938, the old anti-Jewish sentiments in Romania resurfaced, and with the invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939, many Jews were nervous about their futures. Ion Antonescu was appointed Prime Minister with absolute powers. On September 4th, 1940, he established a military dictatorship and openly embraced the Axis powers. The Iron Guard spread their anti-Semitic venom and conspiracies to the populace with posters and rallies. They stated that the poverty in Romania was due to the Jews' ongoing colonization of Romania which prevented Christian Romanians from getting ahead economically. Their solution was to drive the Jews out of Romania, which the Iron Guard claimed would finally allow Eastern Orthodox Romanians to rise to the middle class. For the 700,000 Romanian Jews, the good times in Romania were over. In January 1941, violence ensued and the murderous members of the Iron Guard instigated a deadly program in Bucharest. Particularly gruesome was the murder of dozens of Jewish civilians in the slaughterhouse. The perpetrators hanged the Jews from meat hooks, then mutilated and killed them in a vicious parody of kosher slaughtering practices. Between June 29th and July 6th, 1941, in the city of Iași, over 13,266 Jews were massacred. By the fall of 1941, Romanian Jews' living conditions were unbearable and deteriorated day by day. Although Leo's father, Michael, and 3 of his siblings were now living in New York City, the United States had a quota and there was resistance from the government to provide asylum to Jews. Due to the violence against Jews and deportations of Jews in Romania, they had to leave quickly. Leo and Ida Smilovici discussed taking a refugee boat to the British Mandate of Palestine and seek asylum. The 1939 publication of the British government's White Paper limited the Jewish immigration to mandatory Palestine to only 75,000 immigrants over a 5-year period. They would have to enter mandatory Palestine illegally. Leo had heard and seen advertisement about a luxury ship that 2 Zionist groups had chartered, which would take Jewish refugees from Romania to the British Mandate of Palestine. The ship was due to leave Constantia's Black Sea port on December the 12th, 1941. With his sister Hilda and her family in Tel Aviv, it seemed the best option. Leo purchased 3 tickets, which cost the equivalent of $1,000 per person. $3,000 was quite a bit of money in 1941. Time was running out, and Leo moved quickly. He sold what he could, and he gave power of attorney to his business partner. Leo contacted his sister Hilda and brother-in-law Benny in Tel Aviv and let them know they were en route. On the 11th of December, 1941, the Smilovices left Bucharest for the port of Constanța on the Black Sea. When they and the other Jewish passengers arrived at the port, what they saw was an old ship, only 150 feet long, with 1 bathroom. The passengers were horrified. They were lied to and told they would be transferred to a cruise liner offshore. That never happened. Instead, the MV Struma second-hand Benz-built engine which was salvaged from a wreck, broke down a few times en route to Istanbul. It was at the port in Istanbul on December 15th that the engine completely stopped. For 71 days, the Struma's Romanian passengers were stranded on board in horrific and filthy conditions, while countries negotiated their fate. The Turkish authorities did not permit the passengers to disembark in Istanbul while negotiations took place. Ultimately, the British government refused to give entry visas to the Romanian Jewish refugees on board. They maintained the position that its Palestine immigration quota did not cover enemy aliens. On February the 23rd, 1942, with her engine still inoperable and her Jewish refugee passengers on board, the Turkish police towed the MV Struma out to the Black Sea and left her to float at the mercy of anyone or anything. At 5 a.m. on the 24th February 1942, the seventh day of the Hebrew month of Adar, 5702, the Soviet submarine Shuka 213 was patrolling the area and discharged a torpedo at the MV Struma. The torpedo killed an estimated 781 refugees plus 10 crew members, making it the Black Sea's largest civilian naval disaster of World War II. Leo, Aida, and Nora Shmilovici, and hundreds of fellow Jewish refugees and crew went down with the ship. Only one man survived, 19-year-old David Stollier, who was thrown from the ship by the blast. He died on May the 1st, 2014, of the age of 91. When the news of the MV Struma's sinking hit Tel Aviv, Leo's sister Hilda was beside herself with grief. Hilda's older sister, Matilda, had died in 1940, and now her oldest and beloved brother, Leo's sister-in-law, Aida, and her niece, Nora, were gone. There would be more losses for Hilda and her family in the years to come.
On Thursday afternoon, the 26th of February, 1942, in New York City, Michael sat down with the newspaper and found the published passenger list of the MV Struma, a refugee ship that had been sunk in the Black Sea. 791 Jewish refugees had drowned. As his daughter Rosal looked on, Michael started with A and slowly looked at every name on the list. When he arrived at the letter S, it was there that he found the name Shmilovitsi. His son Leonard, Ida, and granddaughter Nora. Michael broke down and wept. Opa Michael and his 6 remaining children, now scattered and living in Tanley Yon, New York City, Valparaiso, and the British Mandate of Palestine, mourned for their beloved Leo, Ida, and Nora, who now lay in a watery grave. For 70-year-old Michael Shmilovitsi, Widowed and having lost 2 children and a granddaughter, there would be new births, followed by more grief and losses in the months and years to come. Those of his children and family members who left Europe behind thrived. They and their descendants were buried in cemeteries with headstones. For those of his children and family members who were unable to leave Germany, France and Romania, there are no cemeteries, graves, or headstones to visit. During the summer of 1936, Lotta and her sons Leon and Fred travelled to Metz for a reunion with Opa Michael Chmielewicz and Regina's family. The family posed happily next to the aqueduct fountain in Metz, which is still there. It would prove to be the last time Lotta would see her sister Regina and her family. In August 1937, Regina Pitaru, now 32, found she was pregnant. Husband Leopold and children Ethel and Marcel were thrilled at the thought of a new addition to their family. Leopold and Regina welcomed their youngest child, a daughter, born on March 18, 1938, the 3rd anniversary of Augusta Chmielewicz's death. It had to be a good omen. They named their daughter Marlene Genet. Her Hebrew name was Miriam Gittel, after Oma Augusta. Their son's Marcel's bar mitzvah was scheduled on September 17, 1938, just after his 13th birthday, within the next 6 months. Grandparents Shruel and Berta Pitaru and Michael Chmielewicz were elated. All of Michael's children were out of Germany, and the celebration of a new granddaughter was followed by a bar mitzvah. 2 simchas in 6 months. Life was wonderful. Nine weeks after Marcel's bar mitzvah celebration, November 9th, 1938, was Kristallnacht. The horrific sounds of breaking glass were heard throughout Germany, Austria, and Ober-Silesia. Fires levelled synagogues, and Nazis destroyed Jewish businesses and personal property. After these terrible events, Metz was too close to the German border. The Pitarus decided to move further away, choosing a home in Tanlay-Lyon, no doubt thinking as French citizens they would be safe from the Nazis. They left Metz. In Tanlay, they shared a home with Leopold's parents, his sister Clara and her son Marcel Berkowitz, who were not French citizens. On June 22, 1940, France signed an armistice with Germany, which went into effect on June the 25th, 1940, Regina and her family living in Tanlay were hopeful that they would be spared as French citizens. In February 1942, Regina mourned the death of her brother Leo and his family. Now she and her family were the only ones left in Europe. On July 16, 1942, 13,154 Jews were arrested in Paris by French police and detained. For the Jews living in France, it was too late. On October the 4th, 1942, Michael Chmielewicz welcomed a new granddaughter in New York City. She was named Lenore. Early Friday morning, October 9th, 1942. The sound of vehicles and banging on doors woke them all up. Leopold threw on his robe and slippers and went to the front door. He knew before he opened the door it would be trouble. A French policeman was standing at the door holding a list. He asked if Shul Pitaru, his wife Berta, their daughter Claire, and their grandson Marcel were living at this address. When Leopold answered in the affirmative, the officer instructed that all of them were to dress, bring some personal belongings, and report to the bus outside, where numerous policemen were standing. They had 10 minutes to do so. Shul, Berta, and Clara, now dressed, walked out of the house to where the bus was parked. There was much confusion, and other families whom they had seen in the small town were present as well. Standing near the bus, another policeman called out the names of the residents. As each one responded, he instructed them to board the bus. Berta and Shul Pitaru's name were called. Clara watched as her parents slowly boarded the bus. As Clara was called, she was asked where her son Marcel was. She nodded in the direction of the house, and as she boarded the bus, with tears in her eyes, she prayed silently that Marcel would disappear and not be found by the policemen. One of the policemen was dispatched to walk over to the house and bring Marcel to the bus. The officer walked towards the home and saw Marcel, who looked to be the age of his son. The boy looked frightened, and for a few moments the officer felt compassion. He approached him and asked him how old he was. Marcel told him he would be 14 next week. The policeman nodded and told him he had a son his age at home. And then he did something extraordinary. He whispered into Marcel's ear to run as fast as he could and not stop or look back. Marcel looked at him, then turned and ran as fast as he could and never looked back. The elder Pitarus and Clara Berkowitz's arrival to Drancy internment camp was recorded on October 11th, 1942. On November 4th, 1942, they boarded train convoy number 40 for the ride to Auschwitz-Birkenau in Poland. All three were gassed on arrival. After the elder Pitarus and Clara Berkowitz were bussed out of Tanlay, Leopold and Regina never heard from them again. Their nephew Marcel had also disappeared, and they were not sure if he joined his grandparents and mother on the bus, or if he just ran away. In September 1943, an investigation was conducted of the Pitaru family. The mayor of Tanlay asked the Marquis of Tanlay his thoughts on Leopold Pitaru and his family, who were French citizens since November 1930. The Marquis responded that Leopold Pitaru was a very hard-working, serious and good father with no political activity. Leopold was relieved to hear the Marquis's response, but he was frightened for himself and his family. Leopold's fears were not unfounded. Despite that 1943 testimony, the Pitarus received a knock on their door the early morning of February 24, 1944. They were arrested by French police for the crime of simply being Jews. The Pitaru family of 5 were escorted to the bus, 1 block from their home in Tanlay. Leopold, Regina, Ethel, Marcel, and Marlene slowly boarded the bus. Once seated, Regina quietly wept as she held little Marlene close. The Pitarus were bused to Drancy internment camp in northeastern suburb of Paris, just like the older Pitarus and Clara 18 months before. Their arrival to Drancy was registered on February 26, 1944 in the Drancy Transfer Book. It was in Drancy they received their deportation documents to concentration camp Auschwitz. On March 7, 1944, Leopold 43, Regina 39, Ethel 20, Marcel 19, and Marlene, 2 weeks before her 6th birthday, like Leopold's parents Schrull and Bertha and his sister Clara, they boarded train convoy number 69 from Drancy to Auschwitz-Birkenau. On March 10, 1944, their son Marcel Pitaru was registered at Auschwitz for labour. He was issued prisoner number 174976, which was tattooed on his left forearm. Marcel died just a few weeks short of the liberation of concentration camp Auschwitz. On March 12, 1944, Leopold, Regina, Ethel and Marlene Pitaru were sent to the gas chambers. Between the years March 27, 1942 to August 17, 1944, there were a total of 79 convoys from Drancy and 2 other internment camps in France to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and 2 other extermination centres, Majdanek and Sobibor. Of the total, 73,853 deportees, only 2,650 survived until 1946. Karl Fischl was born in Tilsit, Prussia in 1872. He was born to Albert and Louise Fischl. Matilda Weil was born in Limesheim, Germany in 1880. She was one of 10 children born to Abraham and Berta Weil. Karl moved to Mannheim, Germany in 1896 and opened Ullern Fischl. Married to Matilda in 1901, they raised 4 children: Albert, Ludwig, Mina, and Kurt. Karl's brothers Samuel, Siegfried, and Max owned a shoe business in Saarbrücken since 1907. By mid-1933, Jewish businesses began to suffer and anti-Semitism became overt. In 1937, Karl, Matilda, one son Albert, and his family left Mannheim for the United States. Daughter Mina and Karl's siblings were living in Berlin, Cologne, and France, and unable to leave. Karl's brother Hermann Fischl was living in Cologne, where he owned and operated a taxi. Hermann was forced into the Lodz ghetto on October 22nd, 1941. On May 31st, 1942, Hermann was transported to Chelmno Extermination Centre, where he was gassed on arrival. Samuel and Johanna Fischel were deported from Berlin on October 18th, 1941, to the Lodz ghetto. On May 8, 1942, Samuel and Johanna were transported to Chelmno Extermination Center, where they were gassed on arrival. Max Fischel's widow Theresa Wildorf Fischel and her sister Lotta were deported out of Berlin on January 13, 1942 to Riga, where they were murdered. Siegfried Fischel and his wife Ella Fischel were living in France with their son Yakov and sent to Drancy. On February 11, 1943, they boarded convoy number 47 to Auschwitz-Birkenau. They were gassed on arrival, while Yakov died on March 10, 1943. Samuel's son-in-law, Hans Danziger, was born in Berlin. He and wife Edith lived in Paris. Hans was deported to Drancy. Then on March 4, 1943, he was transported on convoy number 50 to extermination centre Sobibor and gassed. Alfred, Mina and Robert Bielski were deported out of Berlin on the 32nd Transport on March 2, 1943. They arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau on March 5, 1943. Mina and her son Robert Alan Bielski were gassed. Mina's husband Alfred was imprisoned in forced labour in KL Auschwitz, where he died on March 31, 1943.
And we worked on the problem of getting my sister and her husband and her baby out of Germany too. And affidavits were sent to the American consulate in Berlin where my sister lived. She was married by then. And the affidavits were acceptable. And when that day came for the issuance of an immigration visa, they were informed that her husband and my sister would be granted immigration visas, but the little baby, the little child between 2 and 3 years old, had scarlet fever very early, a few months after being born, and had impaired hearing. And for this reason, the American consulate was not able to grant the child an immigration visa. Of course, this was very bad news because the parents certainly wouldn't leave a baby home, so they decided to stay. Well, they didn't stay very long because at a certain time, the Nazis, whether it was Himmler or Heydrich, one of the bad fellows that were carried out all these schemes of murdering people, decided that Berlin had to be Judenfrei, which means free of Jews. And all Jews were rounded up in Berlin and put on freight trains and sent to Auschwitz. This happened to my sister, her husband, and a baby. And we have documentation from the International Red Cross, which in turn got this from German records. And the Germans, of course, keep records even if it's accuses themselves. That tells exactly the number of the freight train, when it arrived in Auschwitz, and how many men and how many women were on board that train. The numbers that were given, men and women, and since your sister did not get a number, the document states, we must assume that she was gassed on the day of her arrival.
Ober Silesia is situated on the upper Oder River, north of the eastern Sudets mountain range and the Moravian Gate, which forms the southern border with the Moravia region. In the north, Upper Silesia borders on Greater Poland, and in the west, the Lower Silesian Islands. It was in Upper Silesia. Edmund Wasserberger was born on May 21, 1921, to Jetta and Szymon Wasserberger in Beuthen, Ober Silesia. His sister Anna was 15 years his senior. Edmund grew up with a very large extended family of over 250 members, living in various different towns and cities throughout Silesia. They owned businesses, worked as educators and professionals. Edik's sister Anna was a former math teacher and was married with 2 daughters and living in Tesin. Her husband owned a large business in Bielsko. In his early years, Edik worked with his father Shimon, who owned an electrical supply store. Those skills would serve Edik well in the years to come. In his youth, he spoke Polish, Silesian German, and Czech. Later, in Gulag, he learned Russian and English after immigrating to the United States in 1948. While studying in Bielsko, Edik joined a Zionist youth group, which was prevalent in Europe since the Zionist Congress in 1897. Edik's love of Zionism was later fostered in his 4 children, who joined Habunim in Cincinnati. If it wasn't for that fateful day on September 1st, 1939, he had plans to make Aliyah to Israel. In 1935, his parents left Beuthen and relocated to a 250-acre farm near Żywiec, with a slaughterhouse and inn on the property. They raised Black Angus cattle and horses for the Polish army's cavalry. Edik was 18 on September 1st, 1939, when the Germans invaded and bombed Silesia. Roughly 1.5 million German soldiers and more than 2,000 airplanes and 2,500 tanks crossed the Polish border. 16 days later, at 6 a.m. on September 17, 1939, more than 4,000 Soviet tanks rolled into Poland from the east. Stalin sent more planes than Nazi Germany. The Soviets celebrated their victory over Poland together with Nazis. Poland had become a victim of her neighbors. Thus began several years of misery, which included concentration camp Buchenwald and a slave labor camp in Vladivostok, Siberia.
Silni jak stal,
Edik joined the Polish Corps, led by General Anders. As a Polish soldier, Edik returned to Bielsko only to discover his entire family, including his parents, had been murdered, save for a few cousins. His parents' home near Żywiec was occupied by strangers after Szymon and Jeta were forced into Ghetto Bochnia. It was in the Polish army that he discovered his sister and two nieces, whom he thought were dead in a refugee camp in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, while being in Siberian Gulag since the fall of 1939. Anna died of malnutrition and is buried in a mass grave. After her death, he arranged for his two nieces to be reunited with their father Gustav.
Never say that you have reached the very end, when leaden skies a bitter future may portend. For sure the hour for which we yearn will yet arrive, and our marching steps will thunder we survive. For sure the hour for which we yearn will yet arrive, and our marching steps will thunder we survive. Not lead but blood inscribes this bitter song we sing. 'Tis not a caroling of birds upon the wing, but 'twas a people midst the crashing fires of hell that sang this song and fought courageous till it fell. But 'twas a people midst the crashing fires of hell that sang this song and fought courageous till it fell. Så gnid kin malers du gehst dem letzten Wege, wenn himlen bleine verstellen bleie Tege, weil kommen wird noch unser euch gebänkte Schau, uns wird der Beugton unser Trott mir seinen da. Weil kommen wird noch unser euch gebänkte Schau, uns wird der Beugton unser Trott mir seinen da. Geschrieben ist das Lied mit Blut und nicht mit Blei, es ist nicht ein Lied von so einer Vogel auf der Frei, das hat auf Volk zwischen Fahlen dicker Wind, das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Hand, das hat auf Volk zwischen Fahlen dicker Wind, das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Hand.
Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst im letzten Weg. Gott schimmeln Bleiene, verstellen Pleueteig. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Zweder Poigt und unser Trott, wir sind da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Zweder Poigt und unser Trott, wir sind da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weiten Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Und wo gefallen diese Spritz von unser Blut? Sprotzen wettert unser Quore, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen diese Spritz von unser Blut? Sprotzen wettert unser Quore, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgensonne begilden uns dem Heiß. Und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind. Na dort versammeln wird die Sonne und der Kajor. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Na dort versammeln wird die Sonne und der Kajor. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht kein Lied von der Volk läuft er frei. Das rote Volk zwischen Fahlen die gewähnt. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gales in die Hände. Das rote Volk zwischen Fahlen die gewähnt. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gales in die Hände. Das sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst im letzten Weg. Gott schimmeln Bleiene, verstellen Pleueteig. Kuhnen wird durch unser ausgebänkte Show. Zweder Beugt und unser Trott, wir sind da. Kuhnen wird durch unser ausgebänkte Show. Zweder Beugt und unser Trott, wir sind da.
Szymon Wasserberger was born in 1894 to Karola and Dawid Wasserberger in Krzeszowice in southern Poland, situated in the Lesser Poland Voivodeship. His older siblings were born in Jordanów and Kraków, and two immigrated to the United States in the early 1920s. Little is known of his childhood, although he served as a corporal in the Austro-Hungarian army under Franz Josef in 1913. Szymon Szymek Wasserberger met and married widowed Jetta Better. He raised her daughter Anna as his own. They lived in a house in Beuthen in Obersilesia, where their son Edmund was born on May 21, 1921. Their son Edik was just 2 years of age when local Jews were victims of several anti-Semitic attacks, which began occurring as early as 1923 and coincided with the München Beer Hall Putsch 10 years before the Nazis would rise to power. When Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, the anti-Semitism increased and the life for the Jews in Beuthen deteriorated. It was time to leave. In 1935, Szymon and Jetta Wasserberger moved to an area outside of the town of Żywiec, where they had purchased 250 acres of land in the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains. As it was a rural area, they sent their son Edik to live with Jetta's family, the Betters, and the Carters in Bielsko, where he attended school. During the summer months and holidays, Edik would return to his parents' farm and work with his father. Szymon and Edik would visit all the brew houses in the town of Żywiec and surrounding areas. Szymon and Edik would carry boxes of the finest cuts of beef from their cattle to sell to the restaurants and brew houses. Life was better for Szymon, Jetta and Edik in their new home in Żywiec. Their daughter Anna and husband Gustav Carter were living in Teschen with their two beautiful daughters Ruth and Janine Carter. Gustav was a businessman in Bielsko. In 1937, Jetta's brother Solomon Better and his wife Roslyn traveled by ship from the United States to visit his siblings. They stayed with Jetta and Szymon. There was never any talk about the Wasserbergers leaving and moving to America. They were economically sound, their family members all lived within a few kilometers of each other. In April 1939, Gustav traveled on the Queen Mary to visit the World's Fair in New York. Anna and their daughters remained. His return ticket was for September 15, 1939. Due to the invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, he was unable to return and never saw his wife Anna again. Nobody had any idea that the Germans and the Russians would collaborate and invade Poland. The final solution of the Jewish question would eventually eradicate 3 million Jews in Poland. It was from their home near Żywiec that Szymon and Jetta Wasserberger were rounded up in late 1941 and forced into Getta Bochnia until the action of August 25, 1942, when they were sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau and gassed on arrival. On August 30th, 1942, 5 days after Szymon and Jetta Wasserberger were liquidated out of the ghetto Bochnia and gassed in Auschwitz-Birkenau, Szymon's siblings, their spouses and children, the Wasserbergers and Goldfingers, were taken to the town square where they were assembled for selection. According to 2 eyewitness accounts, a team under the supervision of SS Oberscharführer Proch was sent to prepare pits in the Jordanów cemetery. Apart from the mothers and children, every Jew in Jordanów was shot into the pits using the plank and walk technique, perfected by Oberscharführer Proch. Many were not killed outright, but no mercy shot was given. The pit was filled in, burying many half-dead Jews. Reports that the ground was heaving were not exaggerated. The Ukrainians and Poles who were guarding the gravesite had to stamp the ground to even out the moving earth. The mothers and children who were separated from the original group of Jews were used in small batches of 3 and 4 at a time as examples by the SS staff at the Rabka school to show the recruits the best way to murder women and children when engaged in ghetto clearing duties. If the recruits showed any emotion after these exercises, it was carefully noted and they were removed from the school. The bodies of the women and children were disposed of in the usual way in the woods. The recruits in the Rabka Sipo school were assisted by the SS from Nowy Targ and carried out the brutal action in the town of Jordanów. Edik's paternal uncles, aunts and cousins murdered in Jordanów were Malka Wasserberger-Goldfinger, Baruch Goldfinger, Władysław Awadia, Sarah Shulamit Wasserberger, Roman Wasserberger, Minka Wasserberger, Cesia Wasserberger and Lilka Wasserberger.
I got stuck in German area. And the other family, like my brother's two daughters, got stuck, and his wife, in Russia territory. So, because he took them by train and sent them to Siberia. This was they didn't know it was a lifesaver that the German never came to Siberia. It was a very bad time, that, so cold weather and hard work, very, very hard work. The children have to work and no food. It was very bad, but they don't kill people. They just they died in Russia only from hunger, but not from killing like in Germany. It was opposite, died everybody from killing them. The German found out the best way how to kill people, how cheapest way. On the end, they found the very big professors how to make mass killing. So they found this poison, the cyclone poison. They found it and then killed so many a day, mostly 10 till 20,000 a day. They killed the account of these crematoriums we have and so.
Okay. Do you remember when it was that the Jewish and the German police picked you up in Krakow?
When was this?
Yeah.
Yes. It was saying so. It was 39, 40, 41, end of 41.
Okay. Was that the last time that you saw your family?
Yes, ma'am.
And after the war, did you look for them?
No, I don't have to look. I know where she went. No, I don't look too much. No, ma'am. Because I know who have witnessed. She went to the gas chamber. The whole ghetto went to gas chamber. The whole ghetto, Krakow. She always picked up one ghetto and took the trucks or the trains and sent them to Auschwitz. Nobody, 100% was killed almost. So there was no survivors, never.
And did you know where the rest of your family was, like your father and your?
Yes, I know too. They were in, like my father and his uncles were in ghetto Kenty, and she was sent even before, maybe in 1941, already to Auschwitz.
In 1941.
I think 41, maybe 41 or 42, and sent to from Kenty ghetto to Auschwitz, and there was no ovens, there was no crematorium, so she burned them live. She put big ditches, put something on them. They fed people on them and ignite them with the gasoline and burn them to death, everyone. My father have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. They all went in this way, you know. And many people went this way. When there was shootings, it was before the gas chamber was established. There was shootings, there was killings, there were different ways, hanging.
שאנחנו בניהם ובנותיהם, אחים ויחוסיהם, נוברים צדוקו ביד הסקורס נשמו אסיים. וגני Rachamim, Yasrom, Sesel, Kinu,
The only survivor of the Wasserberger family in Poland was Helena Wasserberger Langer, who moved to Israel December 17, 1948. Edik's first cousin, Henryk Carter, was in the Polish underground since June 1941. His wife Edith and two children, Jurek and Halina, were in the Kraków ghetto. In late October 1942, Henryk went back into the ghetto to see his wife and children. As he entered the room, he heard his little boy Jurek yell out with his arms spread, "Tato! Tato!" The SS were waiting for him. On January 19, 1943, Henryk was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau and tattooed with the number 90065. He was sent to Auschwitz Monowitz Buna. After 6 months, he became ill and was returned to Auschwitz I to be gassed. Henryk was saved by a guard and eventually assigned to the hospital block as a nurse, where he met Mengele and worked with two Nazi monsters with medical degrees. On January 27, 1945, Soviet forces entered the camp and Henryk Carter was liberated. Henryk married Anna, a fellow Auschwitz survivor, and immigrated to the United States in 1946. He assisted Edik's immigration to the USA in 1948.
Everything was clean, nice snow. And I looked outside, and my dear, I saw a Russian soldier. Hadn't been at all one Russian at all, but he was very quite tall, and he was carrying a whole box food for prisoners, for us. No. So I ran to him, took the box down on the floor, and jumped on him, because I was short from him, and kissed him. I can tell you so much that I cried and killed him like to. So, I like to kill him. Anyhow, I took him by the hand. He don't say one word because he I'm crazy man, Not riding head, prison. I know he knows I'm not normal. So I took him by hand to come with me. I took him to my block, what was my block, and I went to the bed. And I gave him the bottle of champagne. So I said, I have something for him. So he left, and I left. I never saw him in my life no more.
Veiteroi Thousands of years ago, by the waters of ancient Babylon, our forefathers vowed never to forget the glory that was Jerusalem. In the moments of our greatest joy and happiness, we recall the national calamity and disaster which befell our people with the destruction of the temple. And thus, in this moment of your great happiness, as you are about to set out in life together, you, Edward, will break this glass, symbolic of the destruction of the temple, and also as a sign that you dedicate your lives to the building of your home as a true sanctuary of Israel.
And my husband, who did not go through all the Hitler times like I did, he couldn't understand it when he pointed out things, what they noticed, how advanced they were now. I couldn't care less.
Sure. And how many children do you have?
I have Marion, and I have a son left. I had another child who passed away. But my son lives in California. He hates to come to St. Louis, but luckily.
And how many grandchildren?
I have four grandchildren. I lose track because the great-grandchildren are now my attraction.
How many great-grandchildren?
I have 3.
Wonderful.
Marion has 2, and sister in Dallas has 1 little girl. But the ones here...
So you know that they're here because of you.
Yes.
Because you were gutsy.
Oh, God, I wish like I said before, I am too timid now. I don't ask for nothing extra, neither here. I can't get...
Well, but you did it when you needed to, see?
That was... I don't know how I had it.
And that's...
That was the important thing.
And that's what's important, is what you're leaving for your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
Yes.
So if you were to tell them something about your life experiences, what would you tell them? What would you want them to know about you?
I want them to know how difficult it was to be a Jew, and don't ever forget that. And I see very often something, when things don't go right, I see a handwriting on the wall. It can happen no matter how safe you are, you think you are. You never know what's going to happen next. Even in this country. I shouldn't even say it out loud, but you don't know.
Because your life was good. You had a wonderful life.
What I had, yes.
And then it was just all
to nothing, so to speak. But I don't have to tell my daughter, she knows it. She wrote it up, I think, in college herself. And I never knew that my son would be interested that I talk about this, but yes, he was in favor of it. Not for him.
Well, I think it's important to talk. I mean, it's really, really, especially now, we're not going to always have eyewitnesses. You were an eyewitness.
Yes.
To history. And it's very important to have your testimony documented, because you saw the SS guards with
machine guns and so on. And you know, it took me forever to get out the crying of the children who didn't see their parents in a long time, and all of a sudden they cried for their parents when they were in front of the machine guns. And for the longest time at night I woke up with the cry of the children. I just couldn't get over it. They were harmless bystanders, really. And they were very fortunate that they were all coming from well-to-do families. They were paid ahead of time, this school, this boarding school.
And
They were one of the fortunate people in the long run. But everybody went in their own way with parents, or some, I don't even know if all of them met their parents later on.
Right, and you know, we talk about you being gutsy, but we also talk about the luck. The luck that you actually did get papers and could get out. Because if you hadn't gotten the papers, you know what would have happened.
We would have landed where everybody else went.
What's your belief in God?
Oh, I believe this very, very strong. I believe this, I respect this, and I understand this. I don't know I understand this completely. In my mind, I understand. I'm not sure, but I believe. I believe in the theory from Kabbalah. I believe. I believe in reincarnation. This I believe very strong. I believe in dreams. I have one problem, I don't can explain the dream. One bad dream I have, what I never can forget. This was in 42. I dream I was in a town and was an inundation from water and dirty water and everyone drowned in the town and I stay in life in a piece of wood. Couple days after this, they pick up my mother, grandfather, and grandmother. They never come back. This was explication of the dream. This was a preparation. But it's something that prepare you of something. Sometime in life, you can have a big problem, but before you have a small one. As thank God, you have the small one. I believe absolutely. Yeah. We're not here to come and to go. Okay, we come and we go, but it's a reason. It's a reason. But why we here? That's what I believe. Why? Everyone have a job to do. That's your job. I'm not more smart than the other young children what they pick up in the time from the war. Was God help me. I decide I need to stay in life. I was so many time in war. I pass. Why? I don't know. This was decided. We have the time to be born and the time to go. You don't can escape from this. This way I no worry for nothing. Help me nothing. That's it. Need to be like this. This is my belief. Another thing what is we never can forget is the couple years what was something terrible. Not but what the German do. The Germany was animals. It was animals. Barbarian. How you can do things like this? But the whole world to look and to do nothing. Oh, this is my problem. It's a big problem. This way what you need to do is to give an education to the Jew people to understand what you have to do, not to go back to the same situation what was before 50 years, not to permit this. You need to be strong, moral, not to believe nobody. When you believe yourself, sometimes you make a mistake. Somebody else you don't can believe. The propaganda was so big. Everything was a lie. We have the big guys from the whole world. I don't talk of Stalin, but we have Roosevelt, we have Churchill. You don't can liberate a camp? How many soldiers was in a camp? J'accuse. You don't can do this. No. It's a shame for l'humanité. Shame de l'humanité. Yes. This way, what is done. We don't can go back. But don't forget. Don't forget to be ready. I hope not to be another time. Well, we as Jews, we have this problem every time. Every time we have the problem. We need to pay the price. It's not easy to be a Jew. Not easy, but it's wonderful. We need to pay the price. Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to, is there any kind of message that you would like to leave at the end of your tape? Any kind of message for people who are going to watch this videotape?
Message is that Germany should not exist for me. It should not exist because a beast is fat, don't bite you. But these people was fat and they would bite people. They played, I saw it how they was playing with the carabine, with children, blood was running. And when I was in jail in the ghetto, was a small window where I could look at. So they took prisoners from the building in back from the quarter and they ran. And they used them as a target board and they was shooting and killing them. So it was so sad, to watch it. How they was killing using as board, and also some Catholics. There was also a story that she brought one Sunday. She brought Saturday. Brought 2 trucks people, a wedding, a whole wedding, a Catholic wedding, came in, and a woman SS was in charge. A woman was also SS. She was from Holland even. I don't know. She's a very woman, strong woman, blunt woman. She was in charge. When the trucks came to the gas chamber area, and she told them, go out. So the priest who was in said, not, I don't let the undress some men here and children and women, I don't undress them naked, it's not things so. So she went in the truck and took his gun and beat him up and killed him. And everybody else was killed too. I don't know what the reason was for this. I'm sure in the wedding was somebody who worked underground, some kind of work.
They were having a wedding and they were picked up and taken?
Yeah, they were wedding. From the church they took them out. They was dressed up in white dresses and everything. So this was a sad story to see it. Then I saw so many things I cannot tell you because this breaks me down, how they hang people in camp, hanging people every day. When you done something small, when you stole a potato and they caught you, so you have to, they hang you and put the potatoes in the mouth, or hang, or the carrots, anything. They hang when they came back from work. The music Meyer was playing, and we watched the hanging people, and the hanging, she brought sometime daytime in the main place, people hanging, and we should watch it. This is only to scare us what happened to us if we don't behave. This was the story, so I cannot tell you so many. It takes weeks until I can tell you all the stories what I saw. The killing, how German killed people. It's unbelievable. Even, in Krakow, already still in 41, it was a Ringplatz. It's called like a fountain square we have, but big. People Sundays was walking, for pleasure, just walking. And the children from the SS was living also in Krakow. The parents was in military or somewhere, so the children from the SS walk also in this Ringplatz, and who they don't like sometimes, they just took sticks and beat them up. One woman, a pregnant woman, I remember, they killed her, young children, 10 years, 8, 12 years boys, they killed them. You could not allow to touch. If you touch them, you were just dead too, right away. They killed them on the streets, they killed them every place, The children too, as it was. So I think the German woman have a killer already in stomach before he was born.
Do you have any message, anything you would like to tell future generations?
Future generations? Well, even in this generation, we see a lot of intolerance in this country between black and white, for instance. And if there's one thing we all need to do, whether it's in Rwanda, or whether it's in Santa Barbara, or whether it's in Chicago, or in the South, as civilized people in this century, we ought to show a lot more tolerance for each other, and that's the main message that I have and that I preach, and I make a point of in my daily life to different people to show that I try to practice what I preach, have tolerance and love for my neighbor. And this is my message, and this is my personal principle. I fail every once in a while, but that's human, but I try. And finally, I certainly am very grateful that Mr. Spielberg and his organization gave me this opportunity to tell my story. I think it's very generous, and I think it's the type of thing, this tolerance I was talking about, and this interest of what has happened and how we should live, and all these things that happened, not just to me, but to 6 million that were killed, including my sister. This is something that should not be forgotten, should be a lesson, and we should really learn from this terrible experience in order to build a better life for our families, for our country, and even as nations live with nations. And I do appreciate this opportunity, and I think Mr. Spielberg has been very generous in doing this.
Could you tell us, Mr. Fischel, a little bit about
your
wife?
Well, this is Olga Fischel, my beloved wife, who had to put up with me for 50 years and has done very well. You don't see too many scars. And we are very thankful for the life we've lived together. And God willing, we'll have a a little more time.
Ciężkie czasy legionera, raz, dwa, trzy. Los go gnębi jak cholera, raz, dwa, trzy. Robić dużo, a jeść mało, maszerować jak przystało, raz, dwa, trzy. Druh karabin ciąży w dłoni, raz, dwa, trzy. Bagnet o łopatkę dzwoni, raz, dwa, trzy. A przy boku ładownica i manierka powiernica, raz, dwa, trzy. Komendanci rano wstają, raz, dwa, trzy. Żołnierzowi spać nie dają, raz, dwa, trzy. Ledwie zdążył wciągnąć gacie, już na pole smaruj bracie, raz, dwa, trzy. Dawniej były lepsze czasy, raz, dwa, trzy. Bojadało się kiełbasy, raz, dwa, trzy. Nim znów wrócą czasy syte, to odwalisz dawno kitę, raz, dwa, trzy. Chlebuś dają nam człowiecze, raz, dwa, trzy. Co się starych trocin piecze, raz, dwa, trzy. Rzadkiej zupki się napijesz i dzień cały o tym żyjesz, raz, dwa, trzy. Z czego robią naszą kawę, raz, dwa, trzy. To zupełnie nieciekawe, raz, dwa, trzy. Mięso zaś też drwi z człowieka, bo drży, miauczy albo szczeka, raz, dwa, trzy. Rano ćwiczą nas po szwedzku, raz, dwa, trzy. Cały dzionek po niemiecku, raz, dwa, trzy. A po polsku jeszcze nam dają, tak to bracie nas kiwają, raz, dwa, trzy.
אבינו מלכנו, שמע קולנו. אבינו מלכנו, חוס ורחם עלינו. אבינו מלכנו, חמול עלינו. ועל עוללינו ותפנו. אבינו מלכנו, קבל ברחמים, ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו. אבינו מלכנו, קלה כל צר ומסתירים מעלינו. אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, שמע קולנו, כי אין בנו מעשים. אבינו מלכנו, עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד והושיענו. אבינו מלכנו, עשה למענך אם לא למעננו. אבינו מלכנו, עשה למענך והושיענו. אבינו מלכנו, שמע קולנו, פתח שערי שמיים לתפילתנו. אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, שמע
ויצמח פורקנה ויקרב משיחה בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחהו לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
בקיבוץ פנה בסוכה בשמחה Baruch atah Adonai mesameach Tzion bevanecha. Sameach tisamach reim ha'huvim. Kisamechacha yitzircha began Eden mikedem. Baruch atah Adonai mesameach Hasan v'chala. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher bara sason v'simcha Hasan v'chala. Gila rina ditza v'chedva. Ahava v'yachva v'shalom v'reyuz. Meheiro Adonai Eloheinu yishama b'yadei Yehuda v'chutzos Yerushalayim. Kol esason v'kol simcha. Kol chahasan v'kol kahala. Kol mitzalos chasanim mechupasam. Unearim v'mishtene ginasam. Baruch atah Adonai mesameach chasanim hakahala. By virtue of the authority in me vested as a rabbi in Israel, and by virtue of the marriage formula which you have recited, I hereby pronounce you man and wife, in accordance with the law of Moses and of Israel, and in accordance with the statutes of our state. As together you have sipped the wine symbolic of joy from the cup, so may you, under the guidance of Almighty God, in perfect union and devotion to each other, draw contentment, comfort, and felicity from the cup of life, and thereby may you find life's joys doubly sweetened, its bitterness gladdened, and all things hallowed by true companionship and love. May the ring symbolizing your marriage bond symbolize as well the binding of your lives together by devotion and faithfulness to one another, in mutual self-consecration and in ever-deepening love for one another. May you establish a true home in Israel, a home filled with the spirit of faith, of truth, and of the fear of God. Praised be thou, O God, who sanctifiest thy children by the holy covenant of marriage. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May the Almighty cause his countenance to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Almighty lift up his face unto you and grant you health and happiness and peace. Amen.
What are you doing?